Welcome to the award-winning Bytes and Bytes podcast. I'm your host, Kristin Demoranville, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the first episode of 2025 and of the second season. Today's guest is someone I've wanted to bring onto the show for a while, my good friend, Mike Holcomb. Mike is one of the most recognizable names in the OT ICS cybersecurity world, and if you've been in the community for more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard of him. He's not just an OT ICS cybersecurity expert, he's also a fantastic trainer and coach, including sharing his knowledge with free educational content on YouTube. Mike has a way of making complex topics approachable and fun, and I'm thrilled that he's here. We're going to talk about the evolving ICS OT cybersecurity landscape and how it connects to some of the industries that don't always get attention that they deserve, like food and agriculture. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let's jump right into it. Well, I am absolutely delighted and excited that I finally have Mike Holcomb on the podcast. So anybody in the ICS OT community is probably going, yay, Mike, because we all love Mike. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with me, Mike.
No, I'm glad to be here. No, I'm happy we finally got to do this.
Yeah, me too. It's probably long overdue ultimately. So as I start every show, we're going to jump straight into your favorite food and your favorite food memory. They do not need to be the same thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. I had to put some thought into this, I guess. But if off the top of my head, my favorite food these days to eat, I am very much into like new American small plate food. That's kind of our jam these days. My favorite food memory, I always go back to, I just have to go, it's more like popcorn and candy at the movie theaters. So my grandfather used to take me to the movies all the time. And so that was, I just remember always getting popcorn, and then Jordan almonds was my thing back then. You can't really find them that much these days other than like to order them off of Amazon or like the craft supply store for whatever reason has them.
That's weird.
So, right? But I'm like, okay. But yeah, we used to get those. I just remember, going to see like, the Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi and all those great movies and just spending the time with him. And yeah, it was always just, kind of the movies and the popcorn and the candy. So I think those. Did
you mix your popcorn and your candy in the bowl, or did you keep them separate?
So with Jordan almonds, you had to keep those separate. Now, then I evolved to when Jordan almonds got phased out in high school, I ended up working in a movie theater, which is still the best job I ever had. And just didn't pay that great, but it's still was the best job. And so there we had Raisinets, and so the Raisinets you would mix with the popcorn, and that was the best.
Popcorn's a fun one because there's so many different varieties, right? I was up visiting my family recently, and my mom came out with this bag of popcorn that I'd never seen before. And I was like, what is this, Mom? She's like, we call it crack. And I was like, what? And she goes, it's like cheddar, white cheddar, like smart food kind of vibes with caramel. Yeah. Caramel popcorn together mixed. Right. And I was like, this sounds disgusting. And no, it's crack. And I can't find it where I live. And so she's looking and she's going to send bags down for me at this point. And I'm like, I really don't need this in my life. This is just like one more processed food I don't want. But like,
right?
And then I know people who mix like jalapenos, like pickled jalapenos in their popcorn. And that whole like spicy, salty thing.
Yeah, I could see it. I don't know if I'd be a fan, and I can't do spicy food anymore, unfortunately. So sad and getting old. But I could see it, I guess. At least to try.
Yeah, I put a little Parmesan cheese on top of my popcorn. Or if I'm feeling a particular type of way, I'll actually zest a lemon and throw it on the popcorn. And then you have like this lemony.
Very fancy.
It's actually really, really damn good. And like,
is it?
So everybody should try that. Just zest a lemon and put it over your popcorn. It's amazing.
We'll have to try that.
It's lower calorie too. You don't need like butter and stuff. It's
that's true.
Report back. A little salt. You need a little salt. You could also just be like extra fancy, Mike, and go buy like lemon salt. But
that's true.
Just zest a lemon. Who cares? Like, everybody's got a zester. It's fine.
Right. Oh, very cool. Yeah, well,
thanks for that.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, I am. And I love that you worked at a movie theater because you've got customer service skills. I actually, this is a fun fact most people don't know, I used to screen trailers for Buena Vista back in the day.
Oh, really?
So I would show up with a clipboard and a light up pen, and I would sit there and I would check off if the trailers were there and if people were, how many people were there. And yeah, it was fun. I did it for like, I don't know, 6 months or something. But yeah, when you're like in your 20s and you're working like 18 jobs and it's normal. And nowadays we're like, yeah, no, I can't do more than like 3 things at once. You know? Right.
That's my thing.
Yeah. And I love it that you're into New American, and we've had the pleasure of having dinner together, and we've had great meals and it's been good. We're also into New American here as well, a little bit more. I think in terms of going out to dinner, I think that there's so much creativity in it. Anyways, Mike, that's awesome. Thank you very much for answering that. You just brought back a lot of memories for me, because I do like going to the movie theaters with my stepsons, and we do candy and popcorn as well, but it's usually Sour Patch Kids and
that's
popcorn.
My granddaughter's all about Sour Patch Kids these days, for sure.
It might be me that's the Sour Patch Kids person, just to, I'm just saying, but that usually gets passed around. They asked for it, that we were moving it back and forth. I don't think there's usually any chocolate. I think it's just popcorn, but they have braces, so they are a little limited on how much they can eat. Yeah. So Mike and I have known each other for a while. We were online buddies for a bit, and then we eventually met finally, and was awesome. And we've been going to the same conferences, and it seems like we just kept crossing each other. Right. We're never there. I've seen him speak a few times. He's seen me speak a few times. So it's been really a lot of fun, but it's nice to finally get you here, and we can have a conversation around all the work that you do, and then how I constantly bug you to add food and ag into every conversation you have.
Yes, you do. Which you should, or you shouldn't have to, but yes.
It's forgotten a lot, and it pisses me off because it's so important, because we eat and it's part of our lives. And
for sure.
And, we just discussed how much we like popcorn in various forms. And it's one of those things that it's still a struggle, even in OTICS, because we kind of lump food production into manufacturing, which isn't incorrect at all, but we should call it out separately, because it's a different thing, right? It's a different thing altogether, especially when it comes to food safety and things like that. But yeah, what are you working on right now, Mike? What's going on? Because then I'll interject all the food stuff into it. Sure.
Yeah, well, I got, besides the day job, actually I have a couple new projects through the day job, which is keeping me busy. And we're about to launch the new cybersecurity practice for control systems at Fluor. So really excited about that, and some changes that hopefully we'll see January moving forward. And then, of course, the big news, BSides ICS, or BSides ICS OT, which is really exciting, for February 10th. So we're lined up. We'll be in Tampa. So it's the day before the S4 conference. So a lot of, we get a lot of the ICS OT expert crowd, as I think Dale describes it, for S4, but then also trying to make an event like more accessible and available to folks, with a focus on, whether you just want to come learn more about what ICS OT is, or if maybe you are an asset owner or operator and you want to learn more, and from a practical, perspective, and want things that you can take back to the office, the following day to actually put right into action. I think that's a big focus for us, and you don't get that stuff typically at a lot of other conferences, unfortunately. And that's always been a big focus for me, at least, for me going to conferences, right? That's the kind of material that I want. And so that's, I think, resonates with a lot of folks, and and that's not what S4 is designed to share, right? And so, but it's, why not have an event the day before, where we can take advantage of all the great folks, that are in town for S4, but also bring new folks and again, the asset owners and operators into the event. So I'm really, really excited. The BSides community was really supportive of us trying this. They typically don't, they have events all over the world, and they don't typically have an event that's dedicated to a particular niche. So they've done like a few over the years. They did a Splunk BSides once, So hopefully this goes really well, because we've already had some folks reach out about doing versions like in the UK and India and other places. So that's really exciting. And so I'm really, really hopeful. So it's incredible to be able to do that.
I think the thing that I'm really excited about with BSides is, especially when you go to all the other cybersecurity conferences, and Mike and I have talked about this before, but we always look for the OT ICS people. It's like we have like little radars. We're like, we're the people that totally relate to what we do. And I realize everybody does that in their own like different sector. But there's something about us as a community. We actively want to see each other. We want to be around each other. We want to have that camaraderie, that community.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes it gets lost in certain types of ICS conferences and OT conferences where you've got so much on and there's so many things to do and you got to meet the partners and the vendors and everything else. But it's be nice to finally have a conference that we can just, how's it going? Do you want to talk? Right. You want to talk shop, really get into it. And I love that, because that's what we need. And I appreciate that the larger, bigger conferences like, Black Hat and DEF CON and RSA are including more OTICS in conversation and even in different topics that are being talked about. But it's not the same. We actually have to explain more, I think, when we're in those environments of what we do, because people still get hung up that it's just all about the data. And it's not our vibe all the way. We're actually about safeguarding lives over the data, not the actual data itself. Yeah, exactly. We do care about data, but it's a different conversation. It's a different mindset. And I also think that generally speaking, OTICS people have more of a systems thinking vibe. So that can definitely bump heads against others who don't have that kind of viewpoint. We look at things in a holistic space and how one thing over here will affect the other thing over there. I think that is I think we're weird. We're the weirdos and we like it. We embrace it. It's sort of like, and that's how I appreciate hacking culture in general, because we get that. We just have our own breed of culture in a way. Yeah. And I'm sure you've noticed that with all of the different connections you have now, and through the trainings and people reaching out to you, you've realized that we're so much different than just average cybersecurity people. And I love it. I love our community. I think it's great.
For sure. Yeah, it really, I've been in IT cyber for 30 plus years, but doing OT cyber for 10-ish, that the ICS OT cyber community is just above and beyond. There's some great people in IT, don't get me wrong, but it's the ICS OT community. It's just that it's just the people here really are focused on the mission, that really brings people together. And to, again, kind of like you're mentioning in IT, it's okay, we're protecting data, or we want to keep the company from going down for ransomware, which are all very,
very good things,
worthy missions for sure. But when we talk about, making sure we're preventing loss of life or somebody from getting hurt, or making sure food does get on your table, or there's electricity when you flip on the switch, or clean water when you turn the faucet on, it's just a whole other level, and people really bond over that mission. And I think it really, really clicks. And the vast majority of people in the field are very welcoming. There's a few that aren't, but overall, the vast majority are, and it's really, really great to see.
I love it how we're almost infectious as well. I love when people come to me and they say, "Hey, I want to change my career. I want to move towards OTICS. What do I do?" And my response always is just stay curious and ask lots of questions. And here's 15 channels you can go look at on YouTube, including yours, Mike, or, here's all the knowledge you're going to have to start learning. I don't want people to get tripped up that they need to know every technical detail of everything that's out there. That's not what they need. They need to ask better questions. They need to be more curious about what the world is around them. It's not like they have to march themselves straight into a factory oil rig. They can ask questions about their HVAC system in their office, or they can ask more questions about their smart home, or they can, be more curious about other things in terms of, stuff that's happening around them. Their car is a giant IoT device, for heaven's sakes. You could have that kind of conversation. I think as soon as people start to realize how big the OTICS world is, it starts to go, whoa, we don't look at the world the same way anymore. I feel like the blinders came off really quickly when that happened. And all of a sudden you're playing the game of count how many IoT devices are around you. Go. It's a fun game we play on dates sometimes, which is probably means we're extra nerdy, but that's okay.
Right. It is. Yeah. I always say like in IT, a lot of us can be nerdy, but in ICS OT, we are nerdy to the extreme. I think especially that if you've ever met, many like tried and true engineers, right? Very like nerdy to the nerdy, degree, but all in a good way, right? I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, all in a good way. So
no, I definitely put my hand up and say I'm a total nerd. It doesn't faze me at all. I think we can save those feelings for when we were, teenagers and everything was difficult because we didn't understand that it's power rather than being made fun of. It's something I do like about the community is we do embrace that pretty heavily, in general. So I'm so excited for BSides and I'm so excited to be part of it. What I'm excited for too is the fact that we are really working on, diversifying topics and speakers and hoping to draw in a different crowd, celebrate diversity in that regard. And I don't mean just gender. I meant like niches and, anything that's just separates you. I really want this to be an event that we all look back on and go, wow, that was a great start, and what are we going to do next year? I think we've already started that. Like, what are we doing next year? But anyways, I'm really excited for that. And I'm also excited too that, it's right before S4. So it's going to be like a nice jumping point for people to get into S4 if that's what they're going to do after.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that'd be really great in general. And I'm excited to see who we get as speakers and what topics we're going to talk about. Because generally BSides tends to be a little different. Not like the standard, this is the banner issue that's happening. We get a little bit more nitty gritty or practical level even. I'm excited for that because I love those kind of talks. And I also love that people get to speak for the first time because it's a really friendly crowd. If you're going to try to be a speaker for the first time, generally more embrace there than if you jump onto like Black Hat stage for the first time or
right, for sure.
I think that's a lot more intimidating. Or if you're going to be like broadcasted in front of a couple thousand people, that feeling can stress you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And that's, I think, a big part of BSides, really. It's just embracing kind of the day and the people that are there. And like you said, just people from all different backgrounds and perspectives. And I'm really excited to see. We already have some great people that have submitted talks and definitely encourage people to go to the BSidesICS.org to submit talks if they're listening to this before the event, because we love to have as many different folks and perspectives there. Definitely. Yeah, I'm so thrilled that we're doing this. Like, why didn't we do this sooner? That's what I keep thinking, but here we are. It works, right? Yes. For listening to the award-winning Bytes and Bytes podcast. Grateful for everyone who's ever tuned in, subscribed, shared, or liked the show. Fantastic start to season 2 and a great start to the new year. We've hit another milestone of 7,000 downloads. Thank you so much to all of you for listening to the show and being part of this adventure. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share. It truly does make the difference. There's so much more to come, and I'm so glad you're here on this journey with me. Now back to my conversation. So let's get back to the regular scheduled food talk and agricultural talk of the show. I want to talk about how your journey with ICS and educational content and how you've been working through the various different sectors in terms of your knowledge set and obviously your prowess on LinkedIn for sure. I mean, you are an influencer, Mike, whether we like that word or not. We'll take it, I guess. And I know that you've been learning a lot because I definitely jump up and down and say, hey, Mike, what about food and ag? I'm like, what this past year specifically, I think you definitely learned a lot about food and agriculture from me. But I also noticed that you've been paying attention more in the media. You've been commenting differently. You've been posting differently about it. What is it that you've really learned this last year about it? What your thoughts are around it? Yeah, I think, I would say kind of maybe take a step back a little bit. We talk about ICS, OT, cybersecurity, there's always these overlooked areas, food and agriculture definitely being one of those. Mining is another. Yes. We see even water, wastewater. Now they've gotten a lot of visibility since the Cyber Avengers attacks that started at the end of last year. But yeah, I mean, you have a lot of these often ignored, underrepresented groups for many many reasons, unfortunately. And I think just with the conversations with you, there's actually a gentleman that this goes back probably a year and a half ago. I was really fascinated with. He was on, and I feel bad I forget his name. That he was on with Andrew Ginter on the Waterfall, the Industrial Cybersecurity podcast there, and he was talking about mostly the impact to farming. And from an OT cybersecurity perspective, of course, they were talking about like the John Deere tractor incidents, right, with Ukraine and Russia and a few other kind of stories that came out of that. But so I think it was a good way to start thinking of, at that point, and think you had the episode, like one of your first ones around cybersecurity in the wine industry. And so it's really, any of those for me, it's kind of like you're going back, like you're on your date and you're looking for how many, OT devices can we find, or IoT devices. And I think in some respects for me, it's more like, oh yeah, I didn't think about all of these places where technology is like in these different environments, because what, I haven't been on a farm in 20 plus years since, I went to my uncle's back in Illinois, and he probably had state-of-the-art tech back then, right? He actually was always up on those types of things, but that was 20 plus years ago, so very, very different. Did have John Deere tractors, big ones too. But, I digress, but I think, it's a big part of, I think for me, it's just like any environment, I guess, until I go into it or get more exposure, right? And I guess that goes back to awareness and education. It's you, just like anybody else, just don't think about where that technology is and the impact. And then, of course, the cybersecurity brain starts kicking in. And then it's like, oh, I'm looking at this from an attacker perspective to see what would be possible from an attack perspective, and then of course start thinking about it from the defender perspective. So how can we defend against those types of attacks? So it's always very fascinating. So it is, I guess, interesting in a way that like food and agriculture does kind of fly under the radar, because we always think of like, okay, energy, right, and we have NERC, and all these requirements, and at least in the U.S. and North America. But we can think of, okay, water and wastewater is now getting a little visibility, but food and agriculture still, is definitely one of those redheaded stepchildren that nobody wants to talk about. It just seems like it's at the bottom of the barrel for people to get to, and admittedly, so like I was one of those people as well, right? And now it's like, I remember there was an S4 presentation last year that Kate Vaja / Kate Johnson had done with a gentleman, and either talking about the security of trucking. And how, right, if you want food on your table, it's got to get to the store first, right? And if the trucks aren't able to function and drive the food to the store, you're not eating. So it's very much the same thing. It's like, what, I think like a lot of stuff in control systems, it's, I guess, until you think about it, right, then it's just, it's just not on your radar. So I think, especially, having the conversations with you, and I think it's, amazing that you're out there doing the call to arms for food and agriculture, because there's, I can count on maybe 2 or 3 fingers the number of people that actually are trying to do that, right? And you are, I think, the most visible and the most vocal that's out there leading that charge.
Yes, I definitely hop up and down a lot, right?
Right. Not in a Tom Cruise way, but
no, not like no. That's extreme. I'd probably throw my back out if I did that. No, I really appreciate you saying all that, Mike, because people are so far removed from their food. We don't think about it. We go to the store, we do our thing. it doesn't matter, right? The people that produce our food are incredible human beings. Whether it's a farm or a rancher or any of that, they are dedicated definitely to it. And I feel in some ways really passionate about making sure people understand that there are human beings behind everything that's happening with our food, and that they're in it for it. It's not about making money. It's about the doing of it. The generational farming is still there, even though I know they're saying that all farmers will be retired by like 2035. We'll see. We'll see. The trucking is an interesting one because we actually move our food more than people think we do. It goes from the farm to facility it needs to go to change it into whatever it's going to be. Yeah. And then it actually gets warehoused, cold storage or just storage. And then eventually it will get distributed. So it actually transfers quite a bit. So if we lost trucks, we're in real big trouble because we can't even move it away from the farm to get to where it needs to go, to be what it needs to be, to get to the spot that it stores and then waits for us to take it to the retailer. It's incredible. And it's interesting because we were talking before we were just recording that there was the grocery store hack that just happened over on the East Coast, and it did affect the Mid-Atlantic region as well. And they disclosed the attack or whatever happened, the cyber incident. Sorry, we should call it cyber incident because we don't know what it is. The only reason they announced it is because they're a publicly traded company, and SEC rules requires them to release it to their shareholders that they have been in a situation with cyber. It reads like ransomware, but we don't know what it is right now. But it's interesting because I was at the grocery store this weekend and there wasn't any eggs on the shelf. And I thought that was weird. And it turns out it was the cyber issue. And my sister's in-laws couldn't get chicken at their grocery store. There was no chicken. And I thought, see, these are the little things that the public is going to start paying attention to a little bit more as it continues on. That there'll be a lot of public pressure that we're actually consumers are going to start caring about where they spend their money. Because if a company can't keep their company safe from these type of attacks, you're going to take your money somewhere else. You're going to go to a different grocery store chain. You're going to, I don't know, have your own chickens so you can get your own eggs. But I do think that the people that do all this work are really incredible people. And they actually are very active on LinkedIn. Ranchers specifically are very active on LinkedIn, and it's awesome. So if you get a chance, just, type in rancher into your LinkedIn search feed sometime and just watch what they're saying. It's super educational. Sometimes it's hilarious. And most of the time they are just average people trying to do work and feed the world. And it's really beautiful to watch some of these people talk. Definitely, if you get a second, please do that because it's really amazing, and give them a little bit of love because we all should be thanking a farmer every day for what we have.
That's very cool. The most recent episode of Yellowstone actually had talked to that. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but if you don't watch it, I would just say, the wife's going to meet her husband. He's at a famous cattle ranch in Texas called the 4 Sixes, and she gets pulled over for speeding, and the police officer comes up to her, and she the woman, the wife driving, had mentioned she's going to see her husband. He's at this ranch, and the officer, she says, he was like, tell your husband thank you very much for what he does. And she was like, the wife is like, why are you, just letting me off and not giving me a ticket? She's like, oh, we're in Texas. We understand what it takes to put a steak on the table. I think that really kind of brings that into being able to visualize it. Yeah, like that.
Not that Yellowstone is, I haven't seen the new season, the continuation of season 5. I haven't seen that, but I have watched it all the way through. And that show is a whole lot of mafia murder and a whole lot of other things. So if you do watch it, people just understand that it's pretty violent at times, but it is an interesting show. It is an interesting show. I don't think ranchers totally appreciate the show because it's kind of very sensationalized and it's not totally accurate. They're not going around murdering everybody every day. I don't think that's a problem. But I do like that it has showcased that life, like what it's like to, live in places that have conflict with, the environment and indigenous people and land and the government and other things. I do think it's very extreme, but I think it does make you appreciate, this. Well, first of all, it makes you appreciate the beauty of the country because that's gorgeous where it is. And then where it's supposed to be in Montana. But, also makes you appreciate horseback riding and the ability to do things while riding because that's most of us just hang on, right?
Yeah, not me.
And, you know, and cattle rearing is so interesting. It's not destructive to the land as people say it is. And it's really interesting how they work with the land around them. And they do show a little bit of that in the show. So I appreciate that part. At some point, I probably should have a rancher on the show and we could discuss like all the things that are wrong with that show.
Right. There you go. That would make a good episode.
Yes, it would. But I think other shows sometimes make me go, wow, that's not accurate, or whoa, that's interesting that they showed that. I thought that was like secret, you know, that kind of thing. Not specifically Yellowstone, but other TV shows in general. I do think that they're informative. But what bothers me too is I don't want certain things to become, people are fearful of them. Like, why are people afraid of sharks? It's because of Jaws, right? Ultimately, because they think there's a giant shark is going to come out of nowhere and chase them around and try to kill them. Sharks are scared of us. They don't really want to hang out with us. It's we're in their space. Really? It's not the other way around, right? It's kind of like, you know, a bear attack. You do things to avoid being attacked by wildlife, but you're ultimately in their house. So
yeah, that's why I don't go hiking in the mountains.
Yes, and a stick isn't going to save you, people. But yeah, it's so fascinating that TV does that for us and like movies and things like that. And I really wonder how that works sometimes, because when you're watching certain shows or movies, I was watching something stupid last night and I wasn't really enjoying it, actually, to be honest. I was half paying attention to it, which is always the worst. But I thought, man, how much money did these companies pay to be featured in this like 16 times? Like, I don't really want to talk about this particular candy brand. Like, this is ridiculous. And I thought, you know what? It's true. They do. They pay a lot of money. It's advertisement, right? Ultimately. Sure. And I wish that we spun our advertisement to be a little bit more like, hey, maybe you should have an apple, you know, like, or, you know, that kind of thing. Even though the Apple industry is incredibly interesting with their premium brands and different types of apples. I really think that, generally speaking, our food system is fascinating. Like, I am so curious about it all the time. And I learn so much more every day about why we wash eggs in the US versus they don't wash eggs in Europe. They are fine and they don't need to be refrigerated in Europe. We have to refrigerate and wash ours here. It's because we're such a large country that we have to ship it. So we're trying to keep the bacteria from growing. That's why we refrigerate it. We wash them because it makes it last longer in transit. Fascinating, like, to me, like, wow. But in Europe, because countries are smaller, you know, they're fine. They're not going to have to worry about bacteria like salmonella or E. coli. Yeah. It's really interesting how this is why regulations have to be done like country specific and climate specific and all these other things. And I really think that we're going to see that in other industries in ICS and OT, the regulations being updated and more specifically to regions and more about like change of seasons and global climate change and all that other fun stuff, because we're going to have to take into account for that. It's a risk factor now. It's part of the threat matrix, if you will, of how we're going to do that. More environment, social governance is going to be part of our world, at least my opinion, moving forward. And I see that in food and ag more and more. Maybe that's why it's such a push down sector. It's because there's so many facets to it. And unraveling it is like kind of crazy. It's like that ball of string, because it's the most complex system on the planet, our food system, because as humans, we just decided that was going to be the way it's going to be. Right. Unfortunately. Yeah. And maybe everything else is just a little bit easier. But I had a thought, Mike, and I would love to share this with you. I was driving back from the grocery store, ironically, and I passed by one of our big water treatment facilities in the area that I live in. And I remember I met the gentleman who runs their OT for that back in DC when we were at Hack the Capitol. Yeah. And he was telling me that they actually sell their gray water to the data centers that are close by. And it's no surprise, everybody knows I live in Northern Virginia, and I just learned recently like 70% of the world's internet traffic comes through here. Yeah. Excuse me.
The data centers are like right up around the corner from you.
That's crazy to think about. Like, my mind like exploded thinking about that. But I thought about the fact that they sell their gray water to these data centers, which clearly makes this critical infrastructure even more than it was before. And I thought, holy crap, like, what are we doing? The inaugural BSides ICS conference is just around the corner. Monday, February 10th in Tampa, Florida. Tickets are officially sold out, but there's still a chance to be part of the event. We're seeking sponsors to help support this groundbreaking event, especially the Women in ICS reception and other conference activities. Sponsorships provide an opportunity to make an impact while gaining visibility in the OT and ICS cybersecurity community. Contact us at info@BSidesICS.org for sponsorship packages and details. Thank you to everyone who bought a ticket, spread the word, and supported this inaugural event. I hope to see you there. But I really like the post you've actually putting out recently, Mike. They kind of challenge the kind of the status quo, because you put it in such a way that it's like, hey, what are we doing? You ask questions. You're like, hey, what do you do? Like, what's happening? Like, what do you think about things? Am I missing anything? And I wish more people did that, because you get great engagement because of it, and people want to talk about it. And I can't imagine what your like DMs look like. People probably just come at you from all angles, like.
It's interesting. I think though you mentioned, like with the comments, it's the best place where you can learn so much. Mm-hmm. And that's why I also love when I do the online classes, because I usually get, 200 people from just all over the world, and they work in all different industries and have all different backgrounds. And you have someone who's, brand new to OT cyber. They might even be brand new to IT cyber. And then you have somebody that's been working in OT and maybe like a cereal, facility for 30 years, like for Kellogg's, right? And then just everything in between. So it's really, really cool. And you get that in the comments as well. So, you get a lot of going back and forth, and whether it's, you get someone like Joe Weiss, who's like the engineer's engineer, right? Who kind of started.
He's the OG. He's the OG.
Right? he pops in from time to time, and then, but you also get, people, same thing, right? People that are brand new asking really good questions, right? And then you have other people that chime in. I had one the other day where researchers sometimes come across a little, I don't know, they just kind of come across like they know everything. It was just like, just take a step back. Like, I realize, like, the more, I'm definitely at that age in life where I'm like, the more I learn, the more I realize I know nothing.
Yeah.
But, it's the comment sections are great for an uncertain post. Sure, my ego, loves when someone's like, oh, this is a great post. But yeah, when you get like a good back and forth, like, and you can actually like look at something from somebody else's perspective or learn something new, right? Or again, it goes back to, I didn't think about food and ag because I haven't worked in food and ag. Somebody jumps in there talking about, this is how this works in food and ag or any other sector. It's like, oh yeah, that's, it's just something I haven't been exposed to. And that's one of the cool things about ICS and OT is every environment is unique. Everything is, every environment is different. So you're just always constantly learning, and then you go to a new environment or a new sector and it's all completely new, or to a large degree. So yeah, the comments can be a really great place to learn, and the DMs are kind of the same. I get, people from all walks of life, from all over the world. If somebody wants to reach out, and ask for help, it's like, I'll definitely help. I'm not giving away state secrets, and versus, I get a lot of folks, how do I get, started in the community? And that's where I point them to my YouTube course or the ebooks that I put together, where they can download those off of GitHub, and then I've, had CISOs for some of the world's largest control system environments reach out and wanted to jump on a call. And it's really, it's really interesting. And I already kind of had an idea of this from my day job, where we design and build some of the world's largest control system environments, where it doesn't matter if it's a huge plant for one of the world's largest companies or like some small mom and pop shop manufacturing. A lot of the basics of ICS OT cyber are the basics, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to apply the fundamentals no matter the size or complexity of the environment. And it doesn't have to be complex, but But and then at the end of the day, most environments they share the same problems and same issues. It's just unfortunate, and because this is something we see in IT, but we see it much more amplified in the ICS OT world. Because we realize like in IT you have the banks, right, where they have my son-in-law works at a big bank, right? They have 3,000 people on their cybersecurity team. Right, that's more than most companies have as just their overall number of employees. Right, so you do have the companies out there, and this is the same in ICS OT, but much more desperate as far as you have a Shell or a BP or Saudi Aramco, right, that have the huge teams. They have very mature cyber programs, right? And they have the team members and the resources to secure their environments. And then on the other end of the spectrum, which is most environments, right? You have a lot of small mom and pop shops, whether it's water, food and agriculture, right? Mining, manufacturing, which is of course big here in the Carolinas, right? And they don't have the resources to have somebody dedicated to OT cyber, let alone probably OT at all. They probably don't have an IT cyber person. They might not even have an IT person at all either, right? And so we see that in IT, but at the same time, like IT, if you go one IT environment to another, they're pretty cookie cutter for the most part. We don't have that in ICS OT. Right? You go into a power plant versus a water treatment facility versus a mine versus a manufacturing plant versus, the list goes on and on and on, and everything is always different. Definitely some similarities for sure in how we defend those environments, but the processes and how they operate, right? It's very different standing in a petrochemical facility versus that facility that Kellogg's uses to make cereal. And so you just see this big separation between the haves and the have-nots. And in ICS OT, there's very few haves and just so many that just don't have the resources to do even the basic fundamentals of what they need. So.
Yeah. And as much as we're technical, I think OT requires us to understand people and process. How are they working with the equipment that they're using? Because they're going to circumvent it anyways, if they have to. For sure. I've heard so many stories, even on air, about users doing silly things around OT stuff. And and it's I think that's something that we all share, is we've all got those stories of, wow, that happened. Okay. And we also are used to running small budgets, bubblegum and shoestring type operations. We get that, and I think that's a lot what separates us from the IT side of the house too, because they don't always get the biggest budgets either, but they get a little bit more than we do because of infrastructure. For sure. And I think that's something that's interesting. And I've been having this conversation a lot in the food space, especially with food safety people. When are we going to make food safety not a cost center, but a profit opportunity center? And when are we going to take cybersecurity and do the same thing? And I said, it's going to take a lot of people probably, getting ill before that happens. And I don't mean to be mean. It's just realistic to say, it's just real. And I hope we as OT people, we all kind of clench a little bit, because we don't want that, because we know how devastating it could be if something happened, no matter what sector you're in. Yeah. And it's the local community that's going to suffer the most. The site, the people around that site will be the ones that will suffer the burden. And I think that's something I always think about. I did a little investigation on your state, Mike, because I was like, I know that there's a lot of food and ag there. There has to be. Yeah. You guys are actually a big producer of turkeys. You're a big producer. I know, right? You guys actually produce a lot of turkeys. And I didn't either, because again, why would I know that? I know the Self's big on poultry, but I didn't specifically know turkeys for you.
Chicken is huge. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Chicken's big, but like turkeys are bigger for you. So, which is hilarious because turkeys are bigger. Haha, pun. So, you probably you wouldn't have to go too far away from where you live really to see the agriculture in the state. I mean, I know when you drive up and down, you see quite a bit of it anyways. And it's amazing how much agriculture is tucked into where we live, but we just ignore it, because it's just part of the infrastructure around us. It's like a power line. Do you really see we all probably notice the power lines because we're paying attention to that kind of stuff, but yeah. We don't really pay attention to like a farm, when we go by it, or what crop is in the field. And I always wonder like that. Now I'm like, what crop is that? Oh, what is this? Or I get excited because I'm like, yay, they're moving. The other day we were driving up to the new house and it's in an agricultural space now, which I'm so excited for. We saw a couple columbines going down the street. They were moving them between fields and I was like, yay. and it was a fun moment.
Yeah, a few.
But yeah, so turkeys. So next time you go to the store, when you're having turkey, you can think, it probably came from my state. That's just pretty cool. I think that local community aspect is super important, especially since I know you do a lot with, in your state, in-state, and around that particular part of the South. And I think it's important to know what's going on in your state. And I'm excited to have more conversations on local levels as well as national and international. I think sometimes we focus too much on the larger, bigger problems. We boil that ocean, but we really just need to sit down and make tea or hot chocolate or whatever your drink of choice is. Yeah. And I think that's super important. So I love what we're doing with BSides because it makes it local, and personal because it's
for sure.
It's us.
I think the nice thing about BSides is it's just everybody can come and just hang out for the day and just share and learn and just kick back, relax and take it all in.
It's not super serious, the event. Like it's serious, like we're there, but like sure. it doesn't have to take itself seriously. It's just a bunch of people getting together, talking and learning really cool things or relearning things.
There's other things that I've just taken for granted as well. So,
well, yeah, I mean, like our food system, we both have taken that for granted for sure.
Exactly. Well, I think that's everybody, right? I mean, I didn't even think about really cyber in like a power plant or a modder until, Stuxnet, which was really where, where I started asking the questions like, well, wait a minute, how does this work in a power plant? I'm like, I have no clue, and then, that's how, how I got started down that road.
Yeah. And I love it that you've carried it forward to help other people get down their journey as well, whether it's your YouTube channel or your posts online or any of that stuff. I think that constant dialogue and making a friendly space for people to land is super important. I always send people towards your YouTube channel when they're like, hey, how can I learn more about this? I'm like, Mike has made 96 hours worth of content. Enjoy for free.
That works. But thank you for doing that.
No, I think it's great because you made it approachable. It's not scary. And
that was the idea. It was like, this is the class the main class there is the getting started course. And this is the class I wish I had when I was getting started, because it's like, what are these terms and how do they fit together? And it doesn't have to be scary, and you can actually learn this, and don't let other people that in the industry that might tell you that you can't or that you don't belong there, or the list can go on, because there are some folks out there that'll tell you you don't belong here, but if you want to be here, you believe in the mission, then you absolutely belong here. 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think you should let anybody deter you anyways. I definitely feel that people have definitely asked questions like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't been to this or that, whatever thing. And my response back is, you have? Please enlighten me, because I would love to learn.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, okay, if you, sure, I haven't gone to this event, or no, I haven't worked in like this type of environment, or why don't you share with me, help me understand, instead of just sitting there and complaining or, saying mean things. I mean, it's,
OTICS people are the kind that would pick up the shovel and go shovel out your driveway if you had a snowstorm, or help you clean up your yard if there was a hurricane, or we're those type of people. We're the doers. This is what we do. We're not just going to sit in a meeting and have a discussion about it. We're action people. We're always going to be action people. And that's probably why we've always been noted as the weirdos, because we're going to go do things. I had this awesome conversation right before S4 last year, because you can chat on the little app that they have. We were talking about IoT farming, indoor farming, and like vertical farms. And I have some internet connected growing things. They're like, you could put the little like seed in and then there's the light that grows on it kind of thing. Indoor farm, whatever it's called. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. But we get talking about how you can put a Raspberry Pi and you can trigger it to water and all these other things. And we get in this like completely nerdy conversation about this. And I couldn't believe like how much people have taken their hobbies and incorporated their OT knowledge into it and have basically started automating their entire house. And it's just so cool. And I'm just like here for it.
There's a few people out there that especially you see on LinkedIn that they've gone to some pretty interesting extremes. But that's like their hobby, and they have a lot of fun with it. So
yeah, and I love it how some people are thinking even like further with it. They want to take like OT labs and they want to create like a greenhouse. They want to show how that goes, and then they want to do the cars and they want to do the other things. And I think that's so important and so awesome. I'm hoping that the ICS Village will eventually expand there too, so they can have like a portable like greenhouse that follows them or something like that, because it would be pretty easy to do and show ultimately. And I'm not volunteering, so please don't hear that. I am not tribute for that.
You can talk with Tom at BSides.
Thanks, Mike, for being here. I really appreciate it. And I know this is a little bit different from the average show that I do. This is just more of a conversation around OT and how we can better serve it. And I love that and you've been such a good sport because I'm always giving you hell. Like, come on, Mike, what about agriculture? But I think that it's great because you've actually I've noticed you started incorporating so much more. You've been talking about other things that are even outside the purview that you were before, even the last year. And it's awesome. And I love that you're so curious and you want to learn and you're about community building, because we need more of that. We need less of the buzzy noise and more community around us.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the only way we win. We always know the attackers are going to be always ahead, and it goes back to there's definitely the few haves in ICS OT, and so many, are the have-nots. Yeah, in my day job, I get to work with the haves, which is great. You don't have to worry about things like budgets, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of environments out there are the have-nots. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Yeah, they're the ones that are going to be impacted, or they're the ones that are going to get hit with ransomware, and they're going to lose water for maybe a couple thousand people for maybe even just a couple of days. But that's still a real world impact. And then how does that those impacts ripple out? The attacks are only going to get. We're seeing, right? They're just continually increasing. The impacts are becoming more and more.
It's a lot more aggression. There's a lot more aggression and a lot more targeted aggression in specific sectors. So I guess watch this space. I've been saying this for a while, but it's definitely going to be one to watch. And it's going to affect other sectors and critical infrastructure sectors, as well as OT ICS systems and other places. Transportation is a great example. You brought that up already. It will be interesting to see how communities respond to this and how we get through this, because the knowledge sets, even for us as an OT community, is still small. We're still a small group. We're not this huge workforce, really. But I think we all have the right attitude about it, which is good. But also, I want to say before you go, Mike, that I'll put the link in the show notes, but he has an ICS OT coloring book, and it's awesome. It's so good. It teaches you a lot, too. It's not just like this proprietary coloring book of whatever. It's legitimately teaching you what things are based on the alphabet or things like that. So, Mike, yeah, I like it. I think it's fun. We should be able to make it fun and memorable, right? It's a lot of information, but I love that you did that. When you posted that, I literally squealed. I was like, yay, Mike! So I'll put it in the show notes for you so you can download it. It is for free, but I do think you should make it bind it up and put it for swag, because I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I did that actually right after we met in DC. Yeah, because that's when I got COVID. Thanks for that.
Yeah, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do it. And it wasn't me. I didn't get COVID. I've already had it twice, but I only get it in Europe. So
could be worse places.
Yeah, I know, right? But still. Anyways, Mike, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. And please do reach out to him if you have any questions or if you want to get to know him. He is a friendly person. Trust me. I know that Mike will respond to messages as well. But everything will be in the show notes that we discussed. And final thoughts, Mike?
Just thanks, Kristin. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for listening in. So, we'll just keep fighting the good fight. And, feel free to reach out anytime.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kristin.
for listening to this episode of the Bytes and Bytes podcast. A huge thank you to Mike for sharing his expertise and insights with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share it with your network. I have so much more planned for this season, and I cannot wait for you to join me on this journey. As always, stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.